Hello, Mark Daniel Nelson here today, mixing a heavier rock track than normal. So today I have this great track by a good friend of mine, TJ Courtney, of his album he put out in 2013 that he recorded at Dave Grohl's and the Foo Fighters Studio 606. And for a bonus, we have the legendary Taylor Hawkins drumming on this session. It already sounds really good. Good old Taylor Hawkins. Sounds killer. Let's hear the overheads by themselves. You can hear 606 Room just in the overheads. Room mics. Just for fun. Pretty cool plugin. It does have a lot of character to it. Just like to pull it up every once in a while and hear what that's doing to the rooms, because it will absolutely stretch the rooms out. It will add almost like, it's funny, the distortion put on room mics sometimes make the room sound 3 times larger because it's kind of trimming off some of the transients, but it's stretching stuff like compression, but it's not harshly adding elements like a compressor would on room mics when you're getting into the cymbals. I want to hear the snare because this is going to be the sound of that console. Now, when you're listening in stereo, do you hear Taylor's kick drum is a little harder on the right and the snare is a little harder on the left? That could be an assortment of things. It could be high mics, it could be high and low, but don't let that distract you, because the beauty of drums are the fact that when you start making things too locked in the center, it starts, I don't know, it just starts sounding artificial. And anyone can get a really good fake synth rock drum sound these days with amazing samples. So by having elements that are a little weird, like the kick drum kind of tickling on the right and the snare tickling on the left, when you pull that into the full mix, it starts making a lot of sense. All right, this sounds like a salt shaker mic. Really cool. Let's hear what it sounds like with the cymbals. I mean, it's kind of always on, so you have to know that like it's going to get a little abrasive if you don't watch it. I might check phase on that later, but let's pull in again the whole set. Whew. That is amazing sounding snare. A lot of character there. And that is the Sound City Neve, the one that you've seen on the documentary. You want to pull some of these other mics down for a second. Keep things clean. The one thing I did learn from Andy Wallace is just because it's rock and drums doesn't mean that you don't want to make things tight and clean, because what you're trying to do is achieve power. Rock is all about power. So if I can find my fundamental elements of the drum set, which is the kick drum, the snare drum, and the hug, which is the whole cymbals and everything else, then all the color that I put on top of that with distortion and compression and EQ and samples only enhances the focus point. So by starting with Let me take everything else out. By starting with just the overheads, this allows me to say, okay, there's your center. I'm going to pull up the kick first. I'm going to check phase on everything. Okay, that is out of phase, but I don't know if that's intentional until I pull in other elements. All I want is everything below 150. I don't need anything above that. Pulling in the overheads again. So, yes, the two main kick drums, not the sample, but the two main kick drums were out of phase from the overheads. Here's out. Just tighter. Been really digging this EQ on drums, the classic 4KB. This will get me started with where I need it to be. I'm going to take out some of the presets I have, but I'm going to focus on this actual expander that I really like. Some people hate this step thing. I freaking love the fact that this is stepped because it makes options really easy. I don't want to push it too hard because it starts sounding like pancake. Interesting. There's no EQ going on. Just the dynamics. Out. In. Adds nice little character to it with this preamp drive. Not too clicky, though, for my taste. As much as I would like to get it to stick through. I want it to be more of a knocking on the door sound than like a tacked metal sound. All right, so now it's locked into phase. Before I had it out because I just wanted to hear what it did once I added all the character and the expander on it and stuff. It does sound like it's better this way, but it's definitely a little wadded. That's with the room. It's not doing much. The thing I like about this song is it's got a lot of space on the verses. So the kick drum can actually take a part of it. So once I get everything in line, I'm going to start pulling in samples to create the inspirational aspect of the character of the track. But right now, again, we're focusing on kick, snare, and the hug of the drum set. Let me put underneath. Already can tell you, I can already tell you that that sample kick is out of phase. It's got a great rock sound to it, but I want to expand this a little bit. All right, now I have that in. I'm going to pull in the overheads again with the snare. There's really not much to do on this. I will put a little top in on it on my favorite little Blackbird DVQ. Just a little bit of that zipper. You watch what I just did. I used the mic line amp on this Neve channel to create a little bit of compression. I like compression on snares, usually on samples. The reason why I don't love them on things like anything that has bleed from cymbals is because it pulls all that harshness up. So by creating ways to add distortion or clipping almost, which is kind of like what we're doing here. We're driving into the virtual transformer of this kit. That we kind of get that compression flicking sound, which is the whole point of using this channel. Because I like the way the top end sounds and I like pushing into it a little bit. Out, in. I feel the cymbals are a tiny bit harsh. I don't want to use the word harsh too much, but they do have an element to them that just listening to them with everything else, they start to get a little pinching a little bit. I'm going to slow this sharpness down. I don't want it too sharp, just a little bit of butter. When you watch when it hits the cymbals, it kind of ducks things in a pretty way, similar to what tape does. The kick drum is supposed to be a little muddy right now. I'm not intentionally leaving that like that on purpose because I want to pull up the bass and figure out where the low end bottom octave is going to land. Sometimes it is the bass guitar and rock tracks more than the kick drum because the kick drum is moving around and doing a lot of stuff. I also know I want to add a ambient sample to the kick drum because I feel like the song, when you pull up the rooms and stuff, if you pull up the rooms too much, then the cymbals get too much. So you're not getting that ambience of the kick drum room. And that's a cool trick you can use to create a little bit more inspiration and emotion out of the kick. The snare is a little easier to get away with specific reverbs, but kick drum is tricky because of the way the low end hits the room and stuff. So I want to hit this just right on my 2 bus of the bus drum. I want to open up my bus compression on my drum bus and just keep it floating there until I know what might be right. I'm actually going to open up the distressor as well. And as of right now, I don't know if I need the decapitator, but that can be used just to goose it a tiny bit more once the whole track is set. Because once you have the drums going and a lot of ambient guitars and screaming and punchy vocals, the last thing you need to do is add more compression or more parallel compression to try to get any more energy out. When most of the time all it really takes is a little bit more harmonic push, like in a decapitator or something. Food for thought. Okay, now I have this going, I'm going to probably try to experiment with the room. Once we get the room set, I can pull in the toms, and then the toms will know what way they're going to be in and out of phase, because the pretty much set is going to be set. I will start to pull in the other elements, the distortion, the salt shaker mic and stuff as well. I love this plugin. It is now almost 8-9 years old, and it's still one of the best sounding limiting amplifiers in the box realm. Because it does this one thing. Watch that meter. It's not moving. And listen when I turn it off. Hear how it sounds like you're stepping further away from the mic? This thing just stretches the room out in such a tasteful way without artifacts of the cymbals or anything else, pretty much. And in compression mode, it's cool, but the limit mode, it holds the whole room together, but just stretches us out. I'm going to try that with the set. Something is out of phase for sure. Sounds like the snare is going in and out. I'm also going to swap phase on this to see what that does to the whole drum image. Okay, so it drops the octave of the kick drum, but it actually swaps the snare. Which I do know that I can fix the kick drum a lot easier than the snare when it comes to phase and stuff. So I'm going to leave that in.